Be advised, suspect is armed and considered extremely dangerous.
Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
Hey, everybody, it is your good friend, Dr. David Perrodin from down here in the North Star Recording Studio. Wishing you well this evening. And I changed things up a little bit. You can see that my website is in yellow, and that is actually similar to the please subscribe and like. I know it looks a little bit like a tornado warning. I'm only kind of trying it out for this show. Otherwise, I'll go back to the traditional color, but I wanted to check it out. So stands out a little bit there on the Safety PhD. So nothing wrong here with your television or phone, or if you're watching this at the Jumbotron at the New England Patriots game, everything's good. And wishing you well here on a damp December 12th here in Wisconsin. It's about 35 out, but it feels colder, just this very damp weather. So just a shout out here to people in the house. Let's go through and do a roll call. Jim, Corey, come on, mouse, keep going. Mike McClune, Uke, Solitude Surfer, Burt Reynolds, and Magnum PI. All right, glad. And Sean Connery's in the house. Holy smokes, look at that. And Merle Haggard's in the house, according to Uke. So, yeah, just, it's kind of wintry weather, but we're not running into the really cold stuff right now. So today I'm going to go over a case study that I cover in my administrative legal classes. And I include this in two classes that I teach. Medical CBD oil in schools, because this is being prescribed more frequently by doctors, by MDs or DOs. So it's not like a witch doctor, although I suppose it could be. I don't know about that, but yeah. So a doctor's prescribing this, and how schools are responding to this, and actually one of these. Wait a second. I don't know if I got my light is working back here. Hang on. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. I think I had the wrong setting there on the remote control. So we are going to talk about an MD who prescribed CBD oil for a kindergarten girl. And I'm going to bring up so you can see an article, so you can actually put a face to this, the context of the girl. This happened in 2018. It's still, though, very relevant today because these issues have not been resolved in schools. So just an overview quickly. This girl was 5 years old, kindergarten age, had an epilepsy disorder called Dravet syndrome. The doctor prescribed CBD oil for her to take, but part of that was it had to be like every 4 hours, and it was via dropper, like under her tongue, and so it would be during the school day. She would need to receive this, and the school said, no, we're not going to administer it. And in addition to that, said she's not going to be in school unless we get like a doctor's. It's really a weird thing. So this is a time when I'm going to get your first reaction on this, which is probably similar to what I shared this in class. And then we're going to kind of unpack this, right? Of like, why did the school take this position of this 5-year-old girl that she can't be in school because of this epilepsy disorder? And it was coupled then to the CBD oil treatment. And then where things went, they got really crazy, like much crazier than I would ever want things to be as a school administrator. And how I think this could have been resolved, and how I kind of worked through this with my students. But this still happens today. This still happens today. I was on the phone this morning with a businessman who has a hemp farm in our state. And he was talking about the issues where they're getting greater verification on the qualities of hemp oil and CBD and then THC derived from that. But he said, we hold ourselves to a high standard, but not everybody does. And because the FDA is kind of on the outside, there is a lot of room for this to kind of move around. Because I talked about this case study and I said, would you be on the show? Yeah, and he was open to it. Not tonight, like a future show of saying, so what is kind of the policy issue behind this? What does the industry look like? Is it largely, unregulated? And if so, like, are these concerns kind of valid that, maybe CBD oil is contaminated with other things, or it has like a THC level in it that's above this 0.3%. So anyway, I think that'll be an interesting show. So I'll tell you where I tend to fall on this position when I instruct students. So let's go over to the chat and then let's get into this case. So this case is Brooke Adams, who was 5 years old at the time. Brooke Adams versus the Rincon Valley Union School District in California. That's a lot, isn't it? Hey, it's Misty Mrs. Wayne. Look at this. Hey, Misty Mrs. Wayne. So yeah, Brooke Adams versus the Rincon Valley Union School District. Really, it's her parents on behalf of Brooke, right? That were challenging the district. This went all the way up to circuit court. So in schools, things that in special education, things that get challenged can go to all the way up to a circuit court. And if it goes beyond that, it would go to the Supreme Court. And only 2% of cases ever make it out of a circuit court to a Supreme Court. So it's really rare. This got resolved at the circuit court level, which is still a pretty big deal. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment here. So again, Brooke Adams versus Rincon Valley School District. And I teach this because people need to think about their professional discretion, best interest, and they also need to be reminded that Board of Education policy is not something that's set in stone. You can amend policy, and sometimes it makes sense to do that. So we're going to go through that. So let's go over here. Let's give a welcome to our good friend, Mike McClune. So welcome, Mike. Welcome, Corey. Welcome, Jim. And Misty Mrs. Wayne. Hey there. So, yeah. Very good. Very good. So appreciate all you guys. So thank you very much. An update here on the channel. So for our monetization, we are about $35 between super chat, super stickers, and ad revenue from having the channel receive a payout in 2022, which is pretty exciting. It would be nice for the channel to hit that. So we'll see. But I appreciate that you work through the ads and maybe you're checking, oh, here's like a belt, right? Or here's some survival cookies, right? That are linked in, or CBD oil, right? Because that's the hashtag for this show. It's probably getting a lot of that. But I do appreciate that. So Any questions, let me know, but let me go over to the chat and then let's get into Hey, it's our good friend Ron Wayne. So Ron Wayne is the Kentucky Batman. Here he is. Ron Wayne is the Kentucky Batman. So yeah, drives around Kentucky in a sleigh with a bat on it. It's actually pulled by 9 bats. And he delivers gifts to all the neighborhood kids. And then the bats and the sleigh fly back into a cave there. And then all's well. But kind of a twist in Kentucky there on the traditional reindeer and Santa. It's actually a bunch of bats, although they do go by the same names of Rudolph and Vixen. And one bat has a glowing red nose. And then they're pulling around Ron Wayne on a sleigh. And if you've ever seen the movie Elf, it's actually nothing like that, but that's still a good movie. And then Ron Wayne is just showering down all these gifts. And then he flies back into the cave and disappears in the night. So Ron Wayne, everybody, our good friend Ron Wayne. So it's our good friend Sunflowers. Oh my goodness, and Bending Ballistics. I have not done the channel members feature yet. And yet is the key word on that, because I will. I haven't yet. But thank you. So, and again, Yuke is in there. Yuke, send me some photos on the update on the staves. That's going to be pretty gosh darn cool. So, all right, guys. So let's get into this, because all right. So imagine, you're hearing this for the first time, which you probably are right now, but I use this as a case study each year in my legal classes. So here's the deal. Okay, I'm going to read this and then I'm going to show you a story, so you actually get to see a picture of this girl to give context. So the case, this is from Rogueway Law Group, and it's cited in the description. It'll be cited in the blog post. Brooke Adams is a 5-year-old girl diagnosed with Dravet syndrome, a rare and severe form of epilepsy. Brooke currently uses medicinal cannabis-derived CBD oil to significantly reduce the frequency of seizures reduce. And the medication can be used as an emergency to stop the seizure. So the frequency and the severity of the seizures are less when she receives the CBD oil on a regular schedule. And then if she does start to seizure, if they administer CBD oil, it can halt the seizure. So Brooke obtains both oils pursuant to a valid recommendation from a licensed physician. Okay. The Rincon Valley School District. So let me put it in here so you can. The Rincon's like, no, doc, we don't need to have you put our name in the chat. And I'm like, yes, you do. The Rincon Valley School District in California refused. Get this, they refused to place Brooke on a district campus. So they said, you can't be in any of our buildings. You're a kindergartner, but you can't come to kindergarten in any of our buildings. Because it alleged that her medication was not permitted on school campus or a bus under both state and federal law. So we'll unpack that a little bit. Instead, in April of 2018, the district offered Brooke an individualized education plan, IEP, which means that Brooke has a disability recognized under the Individuals with Disability Education Act. So they offer her a plan, and it says, we will come to your house. We'll send somebody to your house 1 hour a day, every day, 5 days a week. That'll be your education. You're not going to get to hang out with your peers. We're not going to send peers to your house. We're not going to have you visit school for an hour, whatever. You get 1 hour, somebody coming to your house. That's it. So the parents said, no way. Like, that's not fair. School, like that she only gets an hour and that you're not willing to work with us here on the CBD oil. We have documentation from the physician. We have our documentation clearly laid out indicating that, yes, the Brooke does benefit from the CBD oil as far as like decreased frequency of seizures and severity. And so that was pretty rock solid. Like that wasn't in question at all. And the district said, nope, can't do it. And if, take us to court basically is where they left it. So, hey, it's Vanessa Kitties. Hey, Vanessa, our good friend Andrew has arrived. He just got eating dinner with his family. What did I miss? So, well, we were going to send you out to get us dinner. So I'm not sure what it was, but you're going to do a DoorDash for us. So I could go for a couple chili cheese burritos right now. Kind of for that. I did change the color scheme up a little bit. I know you're looking at this and, oh my God, is there like a severe thunderstorm coming through? And I'm like, no, it's kind of, it's the color I went with. So let me check. So what do you think here about Brooke? Like, what would you do? I don't know if that's any better. Yeah, that's kind of crazy right there. That's not bad. I kind of like that. Although that does give off like tornado vibes also. It's a little less jarring than the yellow. So let's stick with that. So if you guys don't mind, if it really is bad, like tell me, Doc, I can't keep watching it, man. I think we're in a severe thunderstorm here. So I don't know. What do you think? What would you do if you were the parent and this was your child and the doctor's saying, hey, let's do this. Yeah, that's a little more, that's a little better. So stick with that. The red's a little freaky, right? Is it just me? I don't want everyone to be like, oh my God, just wait a second, Doc. I gotta check here because there's a tornado warning coming across the bottom of the screen. So like, what would you do if you're the parent and, or what would you do, if you're the district, like, are you like, oh my God, like, I think the district was in the right, CBD oil doesn't have a place in schools. If that's their policy, it's a policy. Or you're like, hey, as a parent, like it should be there. So, yeah, let's go over here to Mrs. Wayne, who's saying that's denying her an education just because she has a disability. So that was the parents' claim actually in court, Mrs. Wayne. They were saying, yeah, you're denying her what's called FAPE. And FAPE is a free and appropriate public education. And as Brooke has a disability, she would be entitled to FAPE under the Americans with Disabilities Education Act. So that was the parents' claim of saying you're denying our daughter an education under FAPE, which is a federal law, part of IDEA, the Individuals with Disability Education Act. So good, that's the claim. Most of these claims either come out in two areas in special education law. One is FAPE, free and appropriate public education. The other is LRE, least restrictive environment. And actually, this one had a little bit of both. Least restrictive environment is saying, if a school says, oh, like we're going to educate you, but you're going to be in the special education room for 8 hours a day. And then you get 30 minutes at recess out with your non-disabled peers. Like that could be argued that that's not the least restrictive environment. So this thing had a lot of issues going with it. But you're right on, Mrs. Wayne. So let me kind of knock that banner down there. So, all right, let me get back in here. So Corey's like, I'd run for school board. Yeah, the school board. So the thing with the school board, this is a good point, Corey. So the school board has to, they're the ones with policy. So at some point, the school's attorney probably approached the school board and the administrator and said, well, you have a choice here. You could change your policy. You could amend your policy and say, we're going to make a case-by-case exemptions if deemed warranted by the superintendent and school nurse or whatever for medical CBD or something like that. I've seen that. I've seen that. So yeah, look at this. Your uke. Send me down a bag of. We're trying to get the show sponsored here by Doritos. So, yeah, free and appropriate public education. So this is where the parents were what's called a due process complaint. It's basically a lawsuit against the school. It didn't have any like punitive areas with it. It's just trying to get the child into the school. They could sue civilly of saying, like this had done harm and duress to her, and they didn't. There's no negligence in this case, but so let's go on. Marijuana is a plant made by God, says Andrew, has a purpose. Other drugs like meth, heroin, coke, smoke, snakes, needs, weeds, blizz, bang, zip, zoodles, zippies are doctor made. Bad news for people. Snape? Yeah. Coke comes from the earth too. Not condoning the use of it. So, all right. Gotcha. So here's the deal. So, the parents said, hey, you're denying our daughter FAPE. So let's go over and start to give a context for this. So this is from the Press Democrat website. So let's do this. Okay. Do this, clean this up a little bit. There we go. All right. So this is the Press Democrat. That's Brooke right there. And so 5-year-old Brooke not allowed in school because the school said, we will not administer the CBD oil either every 4 or 6 hours, whatever it was, or in an emergency to cease a seizure. We're not going to do it. Here's another picture of Brooke. So this is from the Press Democrat. There she is. So, yep. Yeah. So, but anyway, just to give a context. So this is the girl. Looks like Brooke has orthotics too. So there might have been more than just the epilepsy happening here. But they were saying, Brooke, you can't be in school. We can't do it. So, all right. So now we get to see that's Brooke, and Brooke was not allowed to be in school. Okay. So, wow, this is big stuff. So the parents then requested what's called a due process hearing, which is kind of like a lawsuit, but it just goes over special education procedure. Did the district consider the options for placement for the child? Did they make a reasonable determination and things like that? It's not meant to say, oh, district, you owe the parents $75,000 or something like that. It's all procedural. And really it's what the court looks for first, that the parents exhaust this right. So well within their means to do this. And if they were talking to me, I'd recommend to them, yeah, definitely do a due process for FAPE and least restrictive environment. I think you've got a great case. So ultimately, the parents, it's heard by a judge. It's not heard by a jury, administrative law judge. So their argument was saying, hey, this is unreasonable that the district did this, and Brooke should be in school. So when this happens, by the way, the parents can do this themselves, but usually the parents hire a lawyer. They pay that out of pocket. The district automatically has a lawyer appointed to them by their insurance carrier through what's called an errors and omissions policy. So the district's saying, okay, if you're going to litigate against us in this due process, then our lawyer will step up and we'll take it from there. So that's one of the things I don't like in these due process hearings is if the schools lose, like it's the district's lawyer, or it's the district's insurance company that really just foots the bill. They pay for the attorney. And if there is the case where they have to pay something, like if the parents would take Brooke and have her at a private school or something like that, the lawyer or the judge might say, oh, you've got to reimburse the parents for that. But there isn't a lot of skin in the game here for the schools. When they do process, like these complaints happen because the school's just saying that's our policy. And right, it's state and federal law. You can't have THC on campus, 0.3. And there's right, but this isn't THC, right? This is CBD oil. But they're saying, well, so, this is what our policy is. And our policy says no. So that bothers me in this because schools have a very high level of immunity. I know this, right, as a former school administrator and then teaching legal classes for aspiring school leaders. So I think what happens in these cases, one is the district will kind of double down and triple down on their policy. And then they also know that if they do get sued, they're not paying for their own lawyer. I mean, if you're a district employee, that might happen if you go outside of your role as a teacher. If a teacher hits a student or something like that, that's a civil suit against the teacher, and the district could probably say you're acting on your own outside of your expectations here as a teacher. If you hit a student, right? So you're wide open to litigation. But in this case, right, the district is pretty well in their immunity bubble, I guess. So it's our good friend Bacon Maldito. Welcome, Bacon. So here's what happened again. The girl is a kindergarten girl. She has Dravet syndrome, which is a form of epilepsy. The doctor prescribed CBD oil that did decrease her frequency and severity of seizures. And also it was an immediate way to halt her seizures. So it did have known medical benefit for her. She goes to school. The parents have a doctor's order and say, hey, administer this at school. And if she has an event, administer a seizure, administer this to her. And the school said, nope, we won't do it. Because again, it's against state law. It's against federal law. And apparently then assuming it would be against policy, but just saying, no, we won't do this. And that's actually not true. The whole state and federal law thing is administering THC is against state and federal law. But CBD oil, that was a murky area. So it's kind of, but here's the claim by the district. So let me lay this out to you. So the, okay, let me check the chat here before we get going. CBD is used as a pain nullifier. Effects may vary. Some people see great success, others not so much. Yep. That's why I think it's a good point, Uke. Like this would need to be a case-by-case basis if this was going to happen. I did a talk in my undergrad degree about the title, what does rope dope and teabag paper have in common? My goodness. Wow, Vanessa. So some compounds in CBD do seem to be helpful to people. Yeah, and there's more research coming out on that by the day. It's our friend, the Kentucky Batman, Ron Wayne, good friend Bacon Maldito. Sorry, Doc, but I didn't sign that waiver. Wow. It's our good friend Corey. So yeah. All right. So so let's get into let's look at this from the school's perspective. What would be reasons you think the school would flat out deny this? The school's like, nope, we're not doing this. Because there's a handful of reasons, right? The school actually has that they can present that are logical for why you wouldn't. Well, let me back this up. First of all, when I ask students off the bat, I'm like, what do you think about this? Yeah. And Mike is bringing up a good point here. For those of you, in safety sensitive jobs, you're driving a forklift, whatever, CBD can have trace amounts of THC, which can trigger positive on most drug tests. Yeah. Absolutely right. So Mike hit the nail on the head for an argument that the school would have. The school could say, listen, CBD oil is not regulated by pharmacies. Pharmacies are regulated by the states, not FDA. The manufacturing of drugs is regulated by FDA, but pharmacies are regulated by the state. So FDA does not regulate CBD oil, and pharmacies do not distribute CBD oil. So there's no higher organized regulation process for CBD oil. So it's and I verified that today. I talked with again a hemp grower in Wisconsin, and we went through that for about 30 minutes. So that's one of the big issues in here, where first of all, right, as we hear this, does it seem unreasonable to you that the school would keep the student out? You just saw her, 5-year-old Brooke. Does it seem like the school, like, that made sense? I mean, like, should Brooke have been kept? So when I do this case study, I pause in it, and then I might give a piece of paper out to every student, right? A little note card or something, and just, say, hey, like, what do you think? Should Brooke have been kept out of school, or should a school have done something to bring her in with her peers? And then, it's not all conditional. It has to be like kind of yes or no. So that's one thing I do. So maybe we can do that now. So do you think the school was right in saying, yeah, we can't keep Brooke out? So give me a yes or no. If you think the school did the right thing by saying we can't have her administered, we can't have the CBD oil with her here. We're not going to administer CBD oil. It's so. All right. Solitude has said yes. The school made the right decision, or at least like a decision that they could, get something behind and be legitimate with it. Corey is saying no. Misty Mrs. Wayne is saying the main reason they don't want to fool with it is they're lazy and too much responsibility for them might come up with other excuses. Okay. Like, would you say that how they would check that it was not like tampered with, Mrs. Wayne, or that because actually this is a pretty easy drug to administer, because right, it's under the tongue, it's lingual, and she would take it. It's not like through an IV. Some students who have seizures, there's a diastat medication, and that is a rectally inserted medication. That's true. And schools have that in plans for kids. But so this is a pretty easy to administer medication, although I don't know what it's like to administer as somebody's having a seizure, some CBD orally. But anyway, hell no. So Corey's answering twice. Bolo is here. So in order for you to show up at the drug test, you'd have to ingest copious amounts of it. So talking about that. Oh, great. All right. So let's get into this. And here's where you could argue that the school was validated, right? In their argument. You could say, listen, the state and the federal government don't say anything about this. Let me actually bring this up, which is pretty amazing. I don't know if it's amazing as much as it's just sad. But the feds don't say anything about CBD oil. They do say, if it's 0.3 THC, then school officials administering anything with above 0.3 THC in it, then it becomes I guess there's a felony. I don't know if it's a class 4 or whatever, but and the school personnel then could lose their license, could have, I don't know, be arrested, all that stuff. So so that's one thing. So let me bring up I took a couple screen grabs here, which are pretty relevant. So here we go. And here we go. Okay. So This is from now this isn't from California, but this is from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, but it is from 2018, the same time this was happening. And I kind of looked like when we talk in class, was pretty standard across the US. So this is a bulletin put out by the Department of Public Instruction, a 6-page bulletin. And this was on page 5. So the DPI here said, it started out and said, hey, we get a lot of questions about like, should CBD oil be administered by teachers and, on school premises? And basically when they came down to it, they said that Wisconsin School Medication Law 11829, again, this is Wisconsin, but this is pretty similar kind of across the board. Wow. There we go. Does not address self-caring or self-administration of medications. Okay, got it. But basically, it came down at the end. CBD oil on campus and under what circumstances and what documentation is required? Medical certificate, pharmacy labeled container, etc. So, in the yellow here, there are many factors to consider before allowing the use of CBD oil by students or staff, with an exclamation point. This is again from Department of Public Instruction in Wisconsin, 2018. Again, due to the complexity, districts are advised to seek their own legal counsel. What does that say? That says the DPI is too terrified, too chicken to make a real statement on this. They just said, work it out with your lawyer. We're not going to have any part on this. We're not going to rule on this. We're not going to give you any advice. You're on your own. And, good luck, but we're not going to say anything on this. Although like a lot of districts are asking this of us, this very question, which they acknowledged earlier in this, and they wait till page 5 to get into it and basically do a good luck. And they're not the only state. Other Texas and some others had similar statements, but, and I don't think that's right. I think as a state Department of Public Instruction, you and your organizations at a state level, school board organizations, things like that, they should look at this and say, listen, this is a real, this is a hot topic, right? And also, let's give some guidance to districts on this. If they want to do this, like here's what we think could be a best practice. It doesn't have to constitute legal advice, I guess, but they're not saying like, here's a sample policy, anything. They're just basically saying, go to your lawyer. You and your lawyer work this out. We don't want any part of it. And man, I do not like when state departments of public instruction do this. And the feds don't, say anything except if it's got THC in it, right? Then it's 0.3 or above, it's a crime. So as a school district, right, the state doesn't have your back. The Department of Public Instruction state is just like, you're on your own. So that's one of the reasons why these school districts don't take a stronger position on this to do the right thing, because they don't feel the state has their back and the feds are kind of out of the picture, but they don't feel the states have their back. And I would have to agree with them. I think this is a horrible thing to do. You've got to take this on as a Department of Public Instruction. This is from the Wisconsin Department, the school nurse there, and update 3/2018. You've got to take this on, right? You've got to give guidance on this other than, just go check what your attorney's doing, because this isn't going away. This is going to continue and continue and continue. And in my opinion, right, this isn't bad what the doctor is prescribing and what the parents are requesting. This is very reasonable. And they have evidence of the benefit of this, and someone could say, well, what if it's cocaine they're administering or heroin or whatever, but they're not. Like, don't try to link it to something else. It's CBD oil. CBD oil in it of itself is not illegal if it does have the 0.3 above THC in it. Yes. But we're just saying straight CBD oil. And the state's like, you're on your own. So I don't like that at all. I don't like this at all. Or the state then needs to step up and, work on some guidance on what you'd expect for some type of testing measure for this, some third-party certification, or else have the doctor take on some responsibility of, the doctor signing off on something. But, it's like when kids bring in a prescription, or they bring on, the liquid Tylenol or NyQuil or something, a Dayquil, and they tell the school nurse to give it. They're not checking that thing for purity to see if anything's been added to it. I'm not saying that's likely, but I'm just saying. So I don't like this. I don't like the state's response on this. This isn't just Wisconsin, but I don't like that at all. That really rubs me the wrong way. I don't know about you guys. Maybe you got a different take on it, but I don't like that at all. I think that's unacceptable. I think it's okay if you're the state to say one thing, like, hey, which they said, we're getting a lot of inquiries about this, and we're going to look into it. We're going to develop, and then if you do go this route, here's some districts that did it. Here's some sample policies. You got your legal counsel, put something together. But I think this whole thing of saying, we're going to have you got to figure this out, district. We're not going to have any part of this. We're not going to have your back. That's a bad message to send from a Department of Public Instruction, because then as a district, you're like, well, we got to appeal this to the state. They're not going to help us out, right? I mean, they're pretty overtly saying that. So let me go over here to, this is a policy that's in our state. So with one of the school districts, let me go through this. This is a school district, and as far as like administering prescription drugs. And this policy says the following substances shall not be administered by school personnel or allowed at school in any school-sponsored activity. Cannabis containing and cannabis-derived products such as CBD oil, herbal supplements such as psychoactive effect kava, but the CBD oil. So this is a district in my state which has it right in their board policy, so you can have CBD oil. So yeah, you can have that exists in policy. So, we're acknowledging that's the district does have that. They have policies, and also what a district a nurse in the district could say, I'm not going to administer this because, if it has THC, it is not, the purity of it's not measured by a pharmacy. What if it has mercury in it? I don't know, but a student has a negative reaction. I could lose my license. And I could, is the district going to pay for me for my defense and all of that? So there are issues in this from a district side. And yeah, so anyway, just to put out the district perspective on that, I can see where the district would say no to Brooke and the CBD oil. So anybody have any thoughts on that? So that's what they did. Now I don't know all of their defense. They just said it was against state and federal law, which I don't know if that was the best way to go about it. But anyway, that was their thing. And behind the scenes, what usually happens in this case is like, the school nurse will say, hey, like, if school, you got to have my back. Like, you got to pick up a insurance policy that if I'm sued on this, and or the drug dogs come in and they're going through and they find that this has THC in it, that I'm not losing my job and losing my license and my livelihood. You've got to have my back, district. And the district is saying, maybe, they got to go to their board, but then the state doesn't have their back. So anyway, then Brooke ends up 1 hour a day at home. So betting ballistics, Mike, I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor. So it's our good friend Betting Ballistics, who is a doctor. So a disco doctor. He's got dance fever. So yeah, thanks. That was awesome. Theater sound. Ron Wayne. What happens if a student is allergic to something in a classroom? So allergies, yeah. So I could do a whole show on allergy management. I should. We cover that in class. I actually have a case study in my spring class where we go over an allergy-centered case study. But the district is required to remove the allergen as possible from the setting, or to provide the student a setting which does not expose them to the allergen to a reasonable extent, right? I mean, if it's allergy to dust or something like that, right, that might get circulated through a HVAC system. I mean, yeah. So there's going to be a reasonable expectation that the school is going to address like a peanut allergy, or if a student's allergic to clay, or if it's a food allergy, that would be documented, and they would have substitutes for that, and those type of things would be put in restricted areas for where they'd be prepped, and then also in schools. It's a good question though, Vanessa. I'll work on that one a little bit more, and I'll actually share the case study out that I use on that one in a different show. But thank you. Corey's saying, was that not administered by school personnel? So, Mike, I am a believer in cannabis products myself and have their health benefits. I just unfortunately cannot benefit from them as long as marijuana is a class 1 narcotic under federal law. So again, Mike has this class 1 narcotics. So this is where the school is saying, if this becomes marijuana, right, if it gets over to that THC limit, if there's THC in here, this now could be that the school has agreed to have this. And it's one thing, right, if it comes from a pharmacy and there's some contamination there, because then you would expect a pharmacy would have purity, and they're regulated by the state. It really becomes a pharmacy issue unless it's tampered with between when the pharmacy gave it to the parent and the parent gave it to the school. So in this case, right, they're like, hey, the school's like, this is too big of a risk for us to take, right? And that's actually what I heard when I talked to the co-owner of a hemp THC CBD business today. I mean, not business as in like a distributor, as in they grow it, they refine it, and then they sell it. So from that perspective, saying, yeah, I mean, unless you're going through third party, processes to measure this, there could be CBD that has some level of THC or other things in it. So, anyway, the schools say can't be here. So the parents take the school district to court. And what do you guys think happened in court? So how do you think this court case worked itself out? What do you think the judge said? Yeah, it's Rincon Valley. Yeah, Half Mile Sniper. It's Rincon Valley there in California. I think it's Rincon. Let me see here. Yeah, Rincon, Rincon Valley Union School District. So just to give us a context again, there's Brooke, and they said can't be in school. We will not administer CBD in school. So if that's the case, then you can't be here. So she was provided 1 hour of education at home. Someone from school came to her house. So how do you think this came out when it got to the courts? So Mike McClune, no PB&J. Yeah. I would hope he agrees with the parents, but nowadays I doubt it. So yeah. How do you think this one worked out? What do you think happened in this case? Did the parents prevail? Did the school prevail? Did the judge resign? Did they call in the Kentucky Batman? What do you think happened? So, Sawtooth Surfer is accurate in this. So the case here of the case of Brooke Adams, again, this 5-year-old, this kindergarten girl who was not allowed to be in school because The doctor had prescribed CBD oil as a preventive measure, and it was documented she had fewer seizures and of less intensity, and then also as an emergency medication in case she had seizures to terminate those seizures. School said we can't do it. CBD is not regulated. It's against state and federal law. We're not going to administer it. So she doesn't go to school. Parents sue the school saying you're not providing her an education. And believe it or not, the parents prevailed. The administrative law judge said, so the administrative law judge said, school, you need to provide an education where she's with her same age peers, and you've got to figure out how to do that. This argument of the CBD oil and seizures isn't cutting it. So, the judge didn't say like you've got to figure out a plan, but the judge did grant a temporary order that allowed the student to do this. Let me copy that over. And then eventually, I think the school amended their policy for this. So, so here's the deal. So, yeah, and this case, and this is in the Brooke Adams, basically, but her parents. This is near Santa Rosa versus the Rincon Valley Union School District, 2018. So I use this as a case study. And we walk through this, right? What are the issues of this case? Well, one is FAPE. So you're denying her access to an education with her peers. And then, what's the other deal? Like, what if you're an administrator and you meet with your school nurse and the school nurse is like, I'm not touching that, Dave. I could lose my license. Sunflowers will turn me in, or Bolo. Like someone, or what if the drug dogs come on campus and they hit on the THC thing, and now we have a class 1, narcotic on campus, which I approved of and I've been administering. I'd lose my license. I might not ever work again. Who's going to have my back? And, is the school going to defend me? And, all of this stuff. And then so some students will say, well, you could test if it had THC. And I'm like, you're right, you could. Although I talked to a few school resource officers and they said, yeah, the only thing is if you tested the CBD oil, and it would either come up positive or negative for THC. If it came up positive, it doesn't tell you, oh, it's 0.14, so it's okay. It only says positive or negative. So schools doesn't have a whole lab to try to figure this out, right? So, that's another issue with this. So the school lost on this, and then they were, the student needed to be back. But let me get into this then and let me know what you're thinking, because I want to get your thoughts on this. What do you how could this have been fixed? What are some ways that this issue could be resolved? So I think and I'll start out before we get to school level. I think the first one is there's either a federal statement that comes out from the Department of Education saying, hey, we are aware, and this is very prevalent across the country. We are aware that CBD oil is a medically prescribed prophylactic treatment for epilepsy as well as emergency medication or administered as a medication by what a physician would declare as a medication for students. And because of that, schools, here's a sample policy. If you are obtaining, if the parent provides CBD oil to you and it meets whatever condition, it's come from somewhere and they say that they have this testing thing, and the doctor's signing off for it and they know also where it's coming from, we will hold you harmless. This doesn't exist, by the way. but saying we would hold you harmless in the event that it does contain THC. So I also was checking, like what would be the ramifications if this did contain THC. So of course, Brooke's not very big, right? So THC could have a hallucinogenic or fatigue type, that could bring on her, but it's likely not to be, as the physician would probably say, it's not going to be devastating to her. It's not, but the other argument is, well, what if there's some other things in here like mercury or some of these things these chemicals that are used as they're distilling some of this stuff down? Well, that's legit. I mean, if it's not regulated through a pharmacy, like through a FDA or a state organization. So, but, I think there needs to be, again, people will argue, let's say, Dave, you're not right on this. I don't know. But my position would be there needs to be a federal exemption on this, a case by case thing. And then also states need to step up and say, listen, you have a doctor's order for this. If there's evidence that's saying this does benefit the child medically, then, there's state exemption 118.214, which allows almost a Good Samaritan exemption or something. So anyway, to me, it's the right thing to do. Will legislators dirty their hands with it? No. Are any of the state organizations taking you up? No. Is anybody super chatting or stickering? No. It's kind of all in the same vein. But I don't know, man. So I think that's federal, or at least at a state level. Step up and pass, whatever here. Brooke's Law, saying if you're a school district and you're case by case and whatever, and you're administering this, then you have immunity. So, but anyway, so that's the first. And then, so that's the first thing. And then what do you think the district could have done? Like the school nurse or the principal or superintendent or board of education? Like what were options they had? When I say that, this district doubled down, and I see this a lot. Districts double down on things, and then they're just like, I'll double down on this. I'll double down on this position, instead of like pausing and saying, well, maybe we need to consider this. We need to dig into this. Maybe there's a different way we could go about this. And then you also hear this. Well, if we make this exemption or exception for this, girl, then we're going to have to do it for everybody. And I'm like, I hate when people say that, because usually it's like the whole thing, like, oh, if we allow one student to bring in their, comfort pig or snake, then every student's going to do it. And that's usually not the way it works out. So don't tell me every kid is going to bring in CBD oil with a doctor's order because Brooke has CBD oil. I highly doubt that's going to happen. So, okay. So the school, let's go over to anyone comment on this in the chat. So nut allergies are pretty high. Overall allergies are, God, I'd have to go back. And I have this in the spring class, but some form of allergy is in the teens, Mike. And allergies are higher for younger kids and higher than they've ever been. And not just peanut allergy, but peanut, latex, milk, shellfish. There's a whole range of allergies. But this is true, Mike. In the school district next to us, in their kindergarten or preschool class 5 years ago, 80% of the kids had some type of allergy. So that's just, it is much more prevalent. Allergy Awareness Month is April, by the way, which I think is crazy for schools, because like it's way too late to address things. Like it should be in fall. But Jim is right. They just should admit the error. I'm with you. This is where I talk with the aspiring school leaders and say, listen, there's sometimes you just got to look at this and say, you know what? We messed up. And the parents they're not suing you for $1 million. They're not putting your name in the paper, and they're just saying, we want Brooke in school. And you got to sit down. But this is where the attorneys can kind of mess with the school a little bit. Like the school's own attorney could be like, I don't know, Let's let the judge kind of make the decision on this. And you don't have to let it go that far. Like what I think the school should have done, and what I would have done, is I would have followed what Jim is saying here. I would have sat down and said, listen, can we get let's talk to the doctor, what the doctor thinks, right? Let's get a statement from the doctor of what if this does have THC, a rare outside chance that it would have that. What's the consequence? Because, right, if he's like, oh, like 0.3 THC could be fatal to Brooke, well, then that adds another layer to this, but that's likely not going to be the statement. And, then we look at our policy, and if our policy, and we also talk to our school liaison officer, maybe our local police, and say, listen, we have a student here, and we have this from a doctor, and here's our rationale for why we would administer this. But, right, there's a chance this might have some THC in it. We don't believe it does, but we want you to know, and then let law enforcement know, let their liaison officer know. And so the liaison officer can say, okay, in this specific situation, then we understand. And so, and we're not going to go any further with it. Now, people will probably like cut this segment out of the show and they'll send it right to lawyers in the state and Fed. But these agreements do get worked out. Again, no one is trying to harm Brooke. The risk reward for Brooke here is the reward is significantly higher, and the risk does not involve, harm to the student, right? So the risk, the reward is she's with her peers, and also that she is having consistency in her routine of having this CBD in her system and less severe, less frequent seizures. So much higher reward than risk. So done, kind of like what Jim is saying, admit it. And then you have to go back to your school board and say, listen, and this is where you sit down with your attorney, and your attorney's like, well, we could, and the attorney wants to get paid because the attorney is getting paid out of the school's coffers on this, out of their errors and omissions insurance. So, that's another thing here. And you sit down with the attorney and say, listen, you work for us. So here's the deal. We want Brooke to be in school, and we want the CBD oil in school. So like, what does that look like from a legal standpoint? And if they hem and haw around, get another attorney. I have no time for that stuff. So, and then, so you say, well, here, nothing is foolproof, right? Because the state doesn't really have your back, or the feds or whatever. But in this case, right, you got to make some decisions. And so you sit down and say, we're going to amend our policy, our Board of Education policy. Ooh, we're going to amend a policy. And then it gets real spooky. It kind of this is what happens when you try to amend a board policy. Ooh, it gets real spooky. And like a crow flies over. It's like, oh, and then this happens. So, people are like, what? You're trying to amend a policy? So, policies are not meant to be written in stone. My question is, why do so many kids have peanut and nut allergies now anyways? So good question. I don't know, Mike. A prevailing argument is kids have less exposure to different allergens when they're younger. The processed foods, right, is another argument on that. But yeah, it's the numbers. It's a hockey stick, man. It is just crazy how many students have different allergy conditions. So it's epidemic level. People don't really talk about that a lot, but yeah. So let's go over here in the chat. California schools are scared to death of lawsuits. This is Hamel Sniper. When my oldest was 7, he broke his arm on the bars. School wouldn't even say anything other than he fell. I asked if he could move his fingers. No. Okay, so holy smokes. Yeah. Well, I think there is a fear of lawsuit definitely in this. The district feels they have exposure in this. So, and wow. Jim is saying, I'm convinced it's all lead, mercury, and other chemicals in municipal water supplies. It's my hypothesis, making people sick. So something's changed, right? Something's going on. So let's, so how could you fix this? Board of Education policy can be amended. So you can do that. And that is not a complicated process. So you basically come in as a superintendent. You get informed by your school nurse. You maybe ask your legal counsel, what might a policy look like that would say the superintendent and school nurse could make a case-by-case determination, which exists for almost all comfort animal policies, by the way, that I've seen, that exact language. This isn't comfort animal, but saying, and then you'd have to have some assurance there from your board that they've got the back of whoever's administering the medication. Ultimately, it's the nurse who's responsible, even if it's a delegable nurse act. The nurse says, here, like office secretary, you can administer this because I'm only in the building, 1 day a week. I'm in other buildings, so you have to administer it. But so giving some protection there, probably working with your school liaison officer, local police or something, but you could do this. You could put this policy in place saying, we'll do it on a case-by-case basis. We need this from the doctor. And then once you have that, you are educating the student, right? So these things can happen. So that's where I would go on this. And I tell people, first of all, like, you're acting in the best interest of the child and you're using your discretion. Now, there's a lot of times in schools or just in life or in jobs, but you're not going to have things that are going to line up with the law exactly, right? You don't know how the law is how things will be interpreted by a judge or a jury or whatever. And again, that statement from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction saying, we're not telling you can't administer CBD oil in school. We're just telling you, if you do, you're on your own. You got to talk to your lawyer. You got to come up with some protocol for it. And if it comes to us, we're really probably not going to say much about it. It's going to come back to you. So that's the thing. In a lot of districts, right, they're just going to, I've got to believe in my heart of hearts that the Rincon Valley School District believed this was the wrong thing to do. And they just doubled down, and their legal counsel is probably telling them just stick with it, right? And if the parents prevail, then what? It's not punitive damages. They're not going to get, like, every member of the board or the principal isn't going to have to pay $100,000. So, I think that's where the stuff goes is, people, but anyway, amend a board policy and do it case by case and get this kid in school. And, and that's kind of the end of it. And this doesn't have to be this big hoopla. But so, I go through this with students and say, I don't want to say hill you die on, right? But this is a hill you've got to fight on. And it not only stops, there's a few things. One, you have to take this on with your school lawyer. If your lawyer is saying, well, I see my internet's getting a little blinky. So I don't know what the hell that's about. Come on. It's a landline here, but my neighbors must be downloading the trilogy of Back to the Future. So it's gotten a little stronger. Yeah, we're back. It's Chad Elkins. Chad, I'd like to have you on the show sometime. We need more THC and less CBD. Chad Elkins. So $600 reportable. Chad is going to, I'd love to have Chad on the show. Actually, I had a couple topics. I had some show notes here. I was going to contact you, but I forget what the hardship withdrawal, right? Of understanding what the parameters are on a hardship withdrawal. And also, like, for people's mental health and just, I think there's this area where people are so terrified to touch money that might be in a retirement account, although they might be under great personal anguish because of a situation. So that's where I was going to ask Chad if he would come on a future show and maybe just talk about this whole hardship withdrawal, because I think people get terrified from it. And sometimes it's in your best interest to know what that involves, right? Yeah. Oh, I thought I took the sticker thing off here. Sorry. You're like, Doc is priming the pump here for a super chat. Yeah. So I only need $35 more in super chat or ads combination to get a payout before the end of December. And then it would count on my taxes. Chad says as a 1099 schedule 22. So yeah, well, thanks. I will definitely. So do I drive a Buick or DeLorean? I drive a Buick, which is again a very big car. Drive a 2017 LaCrosse, which if you just look up the measurements on that, it is a huge car. It's very difficult to park because it's pre-sensor days. So like I'll go in a parking lot and then I'll be like, oh, I could have pulled up 4 feet, or it's even in my garage. It's not an easy car to park. It's a great car because it's got a V6, 310 horsepower, big engine, big boat. But even our SUV is like 2 feet smaller than that car. But so Ron, the money's gone. Look at this here. The Kentucky Batman is giving it all to the big red container outside of the Walgreens. The guy's generous. Turns his pockets inside out, and then he took his pants off and threw them in the bucket. So, but then they're like, hey, dude, pants back on. You can't go in the store without pants. But just kind of guy Ron Wayne is give you the shirt off my back. You got to wear a shirt also. He's like, how about this bat? Like, I don't know. Keep the bat. So yes, school boards do not just say, well, that's our policy. And especially on this. So I go through with the students, right, who are aspiring school. And then inevitably, some of them will go back and they'll talk to their lawyers, and their lawyers will be like, whoa, like, I don't know what your professor's talking about there. Or like, yeah, I guess you could do that. And I'm like, you have the say on stuff like this over your legal counsel. Your legal counsel does not rule over you. They guide you, they give you options, but of course they're going to put you in a very defensive position on this of saying, well, let the court figure it out. Right. And I was just not the game that I play. I'm like, no, you should have got the kid in school. There's ways to do this. Change your policy case by case basis, get a doctor to write a note, get some verification from the CBD oil, the company that's getting this out, and go with it. And then advocate to the state. Send a certified letter to the state, and then to your state school board organization, these other organizations that you pay thousands of dollars to be a part of, and say, listen, come up and make a statement on this. Help us out. Give some sample policy and some sample guidance on this. Like, we're not the only ones. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of districts around the country who are dealing with this right now. And every one of those districts knows the right thing to do. And they also know the state doesn't have my back. The feds don't have my back. And you're a school nurse, and I can get it, right? You're a school nurse, and you're like, listen, I'm not going to administer this, or I'm not going to let someone administer this because, right, if it has any part of THC, it's a class 1 felony, and I'm going to lose my license, or I could. And, imagine this in the paper: nurse approves marijuana administered to kindergartner. That's never a good headline. So yeah, underneath the headline is like, Chad Elkins becomes first billionaire CPA of Chicago. That's the headline you got to refocus everybody to. But so anyway, so you could frame it out. The bottom line in this is you got to use discretion, best interest. You got to do the right thing. You've got to do the right thing. And if you're not in this business to do the right thing, then, and I get it. People be like, Dave, like, I'm 3 years from retirement, right? Or if my nurse refuses, I lose this nurse, we're not going to have a nurse. Like there's nobody. And if So, the nurse walks because of this, or what if the nurse files a lawsuit against the district saying this isn't in my job description? And I mean, there's a lot of ways this could go, but there's also a lot of ways it could just be resolved. And that's the way a lot of things happen if you're just sensible about them. And I think it was Jim who said, from an early standpoint, of admit you're wrong. And I don't think you even have to say you're wrong. Just say, we're going to gather more information about this. You talk to some districts that have done this, and you say, we're going to become more informed with this. And in the best interest of this student, of Brooke, this is what we're going to do. And you work from there. And but this one particularly gets under my skin because, again, the feds just, I don't expect my bar of expectations from the feds and the U.S. Department of Ed, not that high anyway. So, or whether this be an FDA exemption, I don't know, but the state could do an exemption on this. It's like when the state came in and said, just recently in Wisconsin, but this is other states that have done this, Pennsylvania, where they said you can put EpiPens in AED boxes or in public places, right? You don't need any special not EpiPens, Narcan. You don't need any special training. You can put Narcan in places. So if people think someone's overdosing, they can grab Narcan and do that. Like libraries is one thing, but then people are trained, but they broaden that out. Like it's kind of under a Good Samaritan thing now. And I'm like, there's in that same vein of thinking is the solution to this problem. But yeah, this one really, really irks me. And, thankfully her parents did challenge it. And thankfully the judge had common sense, right? That's something too. I look at these cases and there's a number of cases we go through because in the one class, I have students take a case and I pick all these cases up by hand, right? So I have 20 cases and I'm like, pick one of these and do a presentation on it. And here's what I want you to address. So I know these cases inside and out. And I know some of them that just totally went sideways, where it seemed completely obvious of how it should be resolved. And the judge is saying, nope, I'm just going to dismiss it. Or, I'd be like, what? So that's a thing is even though I think we kind of saw, or at least that I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you should have done something, made efforts to get Brooke into school. And I thought the judge would rule on the side of the district or on the side of the parents, right, of saying this is unreasonable. And thankfully the judge did do that, but you never know. The judge, because it's an administrative law judge, it's not a jury. So if you get an administrative law judge who isn't a fan of CBD oil for some reason, they could rule for the district on this. And then the parents would have to appeal, potentially to the Supreme Court to hear this. So that's the thing is, you never know how this stuff will really work out. You just have to, it's pretty scary to say, have the faith in the system, right? I don't know, man. But in this one, it seemed pretty obvious in the judge, but this was a big case. Anytime in special education law or in school law, there is a circuit court ruling. Okay. Circuit court. There are 7 circuit courts. I don't know if I can find my circuit court map here. So let me see if I can snag one. Ipanema. Circuit breakers. I don't want circuit breakers. Let me try to get a map here. Yeah, here we go. This will work just dandy. Okay, let me bring this up so you guys get an idea of what I'm. Oh yeah, it's not bad. Okay, just a second. All right. So here's how this works. And all right. Mrs. Wayne is saying, Doc, if we ever talk on the phone face to face one day, I'll tell you how I'm so involved in this story. This story or in the velocity of information. But yeah, I would love to do that. Either way. So thank you, Mrs. Wayne. So let me go through this, because a lot of people, when students don't know about this, they know they're circuit courts, right? But they're usually never involved in a circuit court lawsuit, but some are. So there's 11 circuit courts. And you can see like they were developed earlier, because obviously there's Ninth Circuit Court covers California, Oregon, Washington's heavy, pretty populous area. But so the Ninth Circuit Court is what heard this hearing, right? So you have 11 circuit courts, and then if the parent could appeal it to the Supreme Court, could push it up to the Supreme Court. Now, what will largely happen here is a district doesn't want to deal with that. The district is looking at this and they're like, we're not going to take this to the Supreme Court. I mean, and so whatever a circuit court decides on a case like this, other circuit courts look at that. So if this case comes up in Texas, which is the Fifth Circuit Court down here, this in a similar case did come up in Texas. Texas says, let's see what other courts might have dealt with this. And they're like, oh, California, Rincon Valley. Okay, this is what California did. This is how they determined it. So we're going to say, based upon how California in Brooke Adams versus Rincon Valley Union School District, we're going to follow the same process that they did for how they determine free and appropriate public education and their conclusions. So once a circuit court sets this, it's very rare that another circuit court would go against it if it's like very similar. So you'd have to say basically very similar case. So a kid comes in, CBD oil prescription, right, and seizures. And so like, because the Ninth Circuit Court did that in 2018, that makes it a lot easier for states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Maine and Florida to advocate for their schools to change policy and to do things to keep a Brooke Adams, a kid with seizures, in school and administer CBD, because they're going to look at this case in the Ninth Circuit Court and they're say, well, and if you do want to run it up, again, it's likely that the local circuit court that serves your state would follow precedents set by another state. It's not a guarantee, but it's likely. So you've got a lot of good things kind of going for you. So Brooke's parents, by doing that lawsuit, actually did a really good thing for probably thousands of parents who have children with epilepsy, and where their physician is saying, here, CBD oil, and work with the school and get it administered. So this is a big, big case. So yeah, that is kind of how it works. So let's go over to the chat here. So Ron Wayne, I almost start doing live streams, but difficult to pick a time slot. Ron Wayne is like, I'm going to slot him in 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. That's Eastern time. That's Ron's time. So it was funny. I was going through my early shows, and in the back I had, so if you watch like show 85 or something, it has the 405media.com logo in the back. And that was, the 405 Media was out of Los Angeles. It was run by John Grant, and it was a podcast radio station. And it actually had a lot of pretty big shows on it at the time, back between like 1990 or 2017, 18, maybe up until like 2021 or something. And then it ended. But at the time, it was a really popular, basically like a podcast radio station. So I was offered, there was a show that had been on it, which had hundreds of episodes, and they were going off the air. And John Grant contacted me as when my show was kind of starting. He said, I can give you a 1-hour time slot, and it's like 2 a.m, but we will syndicate your show. So it will just play every 2 a.m, but then like every week or 10 days, like do new content. And then they gave me the interface, log in and put like the graphic of the new show up in the description. And so that was great. I got like a lot of people became aware of the show because of the 405 media. But now because it's not around anymore, I don't have any of that stuff out there. But anyway, it started. And then as other time slots opened up over the years, they would move me into better time slots. And then I think when it finally went off the air, I think I had like a 3 p.m. time slot. So I don't know, Ron. It's your call. Ron's like, I'm going to go head to head here with the safety doc and take him out. So I don't know. Ron's thinking of doing a preemptive strike here to take out the safety doc, take out the channel through head to head. So show's moving, or the chat's moving fast here. So I'm reading through the chat here. There's a lot of good stuff. Jim is saying Buick cars almost always look better than the Chevys, no doubt. I owned 4 Buick cars, 2 Chevy light trucks, 2 Chevy cars, 1 Chrysler. Yeah, Chrysler too. That's a similar experience, which convinced me never to buy another Pentas. Yeah, every Chrysler I own, man, gave me issues. Yeah. So my previous Buick, that was the one that was destroyed in the car accident in 2019 on the interstate, which was great. And it was not as big. I mean, a bigger engine, but oh man. So I like my car. It's just it's very physically big. So it's a good family cruiser for vacation, although we take the SUV now because the SUV has the moonroof on it, right? So it's kind of a neat thing. Plus the GPS maps yeah, I filled up a gas this week, and my God, I think it's the first time I filled up a gas like in 2 months. So I just don't drive a lot, man. I just got to make sure I'm running through enough gas on there. Then I can tell like I got to take a little trip because the brakes start to get a little rust on the rotors. So no way I would do that time slot. Much respect for you. Thanks, Ron Wayne. So I picked this time slot because I didn't want to interfere with Masculine Geek or the Mallard show. Those were kind of 2 established shows that I didn't want to go up against. So this seemed to be a pretty good slot. In my schedule, it works out pretty well because I usually have time on the weekends to put the blog posts and stuff together too. So get that kind of ready to go. So Vanessa saying, I miss my Fleetwood Cadillac from the 90s. 4 adult bodies could be held in the trunk. Yeah, those were some fascinating cars. 30, yeah, I had a 3800 V6 in my 2007 Buick LaCrosse, and that was awesome. That's the car that got totaled out with 106,000 miles on after I just had like all the maintenance done, all the fluids flushed, new belts, hoses, everything. And then like a week or 2 later, that car, I'm sure the way I took care of it, right, and always synthetic oil, that thing would have lasted me. There was nothing wrong with the car at all. Body was perfect. That car, it still might be in my garage. That was a sad day. And the leather seats were just unbelievable in the handling of that car. And from that standpoint, it was better than the car I own now. It was probably best vehicle I've ever owned, but sad. It was a very, very sad time. Yeah. So I've got a 3600 V6, which I know those can be a little tricky. Although, like, I bought the car new, and I've always done full synthetic oil changes, and I've never had a problem with the car. So I think I'm in good shape. If anything would really been an issue, it would have manifested by now. I work in a union shop. This is John Rice, refused to join. There's so many things you fail to comprehend. My perspective is that they do not support almost any single thing that I feel is in my best interest. So thanks for sharing that, John. Yeah, I was a part of a teachers union. Teachers unions were largely kind of disbanded in Wisconsin in 2011 by Governor Scott Walker. But I remember when I started in education as a teacher, and I got my first check, and I'd be like, "What's this amount of money that's taken out for union dues?" Right, and it was pretty sizable, and and it was for I guess the union advocacy for wages and benefits and whatever. But yeah, I felt it was a pretty big bite out of the check, and I'm not sure I really realized a benefit from that. So Half Mile is going to take the puppy out and then eat dinner. So, all right, buddy, thanks for being here. Give a thumbs up to the show, share it with your friends. Remember those ads? They want you to click through and visit, put everything you can, like $10,000 worth of things in your watch cart, and then just take them all out. And then they're like, whoa. So they're serious here. Those people on Doc's channel, they're not messing around. So I wonder what kind of ads come up on my show, by the way, because I don't see them. Like from my interface, when I go in, they're not there because you're not getting ads from watching your own thing. But like, is it, I wonder what the theme is, is it survival food or is it, CBD oil or whatever, vacations. Oh, by the way, like I keep getting ads for the villages in Florida, the retirement community of age 55 or older, which personally, if it was just me, I would probably at least live there part of the year, the winter part of the year. But I got an ad today from them, and they're like, hey, like, you can do there's like a 7-day trial. You can come down. I don't know. There's a name for it. And they said, you can do this. We'll give you a golf cart. You'll have access to the golf courses and a pass to the rec events. And I was like, oh. So I kind of like that stuff, man. I don't like the rec events. I'm not going to be out there like doing a line dance or, stuff like that. But golfing, yeah, I mean, count me in a golf cart. Like, they just pull up by my house and 80 degrees. Yeah, I'm trying to find the downside in this scenario, but I don't know. So they've got my attention. So come on down. I could change the windshield myself in that Datsun. Holy smokes, Vanessa. Yeah. So actually my Buick still has a traditional windshield, no sensors built into it, right? Or no sense, like the SUV, if that windshield gets damaged, that's a pretty expensive thing because they have to recalibrate all the sensors. So, my Buick still is pretty low tech on those things. Oh my God. Jim at a 97 Park Avenue Ultra. Very comfy, very large. Still a little smaller than my Chevy Impala Caprice. Yeah, those are nice cars. My parents had one of those, and it was really nice. And, I think they should have kept it. They got rid of it for SUV, a smaller SUV. And if I were them, I would have kept the car because there was nothing wrong. Big engine. And the few times I drove it, I really liked it. So that would be a car. Yeah. If I had to pick out a car today, man, that's what I would do. So, wow. Let's check here on the Impala. Nice ride. Cops here use them. Now all they drive is SUVs. Same in my community. 10 years ago, yeah, it was Impalas, and now it's all SUVs. But we had an Impala 2008, which we sold outright. Did very well on that. A year ago when our SUV came in. So, but that was a good car, but I'm glad that we did the move over to the SUV and all-wheel drive. And but yeah, like the squad cars now are just crazy expensive. So, by the way, in my fantasy football league, the guys I've been with 25 years in this league, yesterday I lost by 5 points. Had I won that game, I would have made the final playoff spot. And now what's remarkable about that is last year I won the league, but I won it because I finished 7-7. I had to win the final game to get into the playoffs. And then I swept the playoffs and won the Super Bowl, right? And I was 2-7 in this year's league, and I came back to be 6-7. If I would have won yesterday, which I should have, I started Tom Brady, and I knew it was a mistake. I had Ryan Tannehill on my squad and should have started him, but I would have actually made the playoffs. So, but in my other league at the Wisconsin School for the Blind, I am 10-4, first place, and I locked up the first place seed. First time I've done that, and I won that league last year. So, yes. I watch a whole Roomba ad. Oh, yeah, it was Roomba. Okay. Look at this. Ron Wayne clicked. He put 9 of them in his cart. So that is, wow. Look at that. So, wow. Yeah. Let's see. Walmart ad on a refresh. Interesting. So they're playing pretty safe here with things. Florida sounds great. Yeah, our neighbors lived in Florida. They had a place in one of these villages type things, and they would be there in winter, then they come back in summer, and they were like 60 years old, and they just permanently moved down there because they're like, it's where they want it to be. But it's a hard sell. I could never get my family to go for that. But I, again, like for Florida in general, I think if you're from a cold weather climate and you get to be, north of 50 years old, like, why would you want to be here? Unless you really were devoted to ice fishing or other stuff, or, I guess family, right? But man, I just would not want to winter here. For many, many years, my dad retired. My parents always wintered in Alabama. They shut the house down, and, for like 10, 15 years, they did that. So, but I just, like when the Villages ads come up, I'm like, oh my God, those are tempting. Like, that's not a hard sell. Well, I mean, it's a hard sell because I couldn't get everybody to go, but if it was just me, man, or, just some time down there in the warm weather and golfing and that type of stuff, I don't know. So I miss driving my grandma's 78 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. It's Mike. Wow. I watched Jimmy Dore today, but he privated or deleted his video from YouTube. Interesting. Huh. Wow. A Hotel Indigo? What in the world is that, Ron? Hotel Indigo? YouTube's having a hard time trying to calibrate in on the ad that fits the channel here. I think it'd be more personally, kind of survival food, survival, that type of stuff would tag with the channel. Because all of this, every hashtag I do has something safety and survival and things like that. And, so the algorithms, not dealt in. So, New York Outcast, golf courses are a waste of a good shooting range. That is funny. So look at this, Misty Mrs. Wayne. I had to answer a survey. The survey is, should the Kentucky Batman, be the official logo of the Kentucky Outdoors Department of Natural Resources? So, and the answer to that is yes. So, yeah. Wow. They should pay you for those surveys. Yeah. There was a time like 20 years ago, I signed up for some site, and if you took surveys, they would pay you. And they sent you like a check. It'd be like $2. But he realized like you end up doing surveys for like 3 hours a night for like $8. So it wasn't worth it in the long run. But then, in your mailbox, I got a check here for $4 for taking a 3-hour survey. So, oh my God. That is, Mike is right. No domestic automaker has a sedan in their fleets. The Buick LaCrosse is still made for the Chinese market, and they've updated, but it looks similar to the version I have, which was 2017 through 19 minus 2017. And they have a 2023 version of that, which sells to the Chinese market, but not, isn't that unbelievable to think that we don't have a sedan from a domestic automaker? It's really mind-boggling to think that's where we're at. Oh no, Ron Mansky, I don't know. That must be based off your search history or something there. I don't know what's going on with that. But there's this ad, Bespoke, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but it's basically they send you a box of things that if you're a guy, they think like every month we'll send you the shoe box, and it'll have like a carving knife in it, and like some it's just this, like it's a handcrafted, leather wallet and some other stuff. And I'm like, well, if I want this stuff, like I'll just buy it. It's like, pumpkin scented shaving cream. Have you guys seen this like Bespoke thing? And it's actually a company, right? So you subscribe, and it's like, oh, like every month, and if you don't like it, you can switch it out for another box of stuff. I'm like, who comes up with that? I'm like, I don't want to deal. I don't want that. First of all, like if somebody signed me up for that, I'd be like, oh, please. Like, but that's actually a business where, and then they'll, show these dudes like, oh my God, look at this here is, Himalayan, wool socks. Like, oh man, this is just the greatest things. I'm like, well, if I wanted something like that, go and get it. I don't know. I don't want a box of these things. Oh, look at this mahogany, like cutting board, I don't know, man. I think it's Bespoke, but it's rechargeable, waterproof. Yikes. Which reminds me, I need to replace my dust vac, although there's like a new name for it. Because the battery's pretty much gone after many, many, many years. And the thing doesn't really like fit together anymore, but like you'll be using it, and then the container there, all this dust and stuff comes in, it'll fall off. Like, so you got to kind of like hold it together as you're using it. But I don't use it that often, but I do use it in the car, except when I'm doing serious cleaning, then I'll bring out the like wet dry vac. But and Mike, all sedan, this is from Sunflowers. All sedan sales in North America are declining, including those made by foreign manufacturers. That's why every single manufacturer has introduced more SUVs and crossovers as an alternative. Yeah, just crazy stuff that we're seeing the demise, or we have seen the demise of the sedan. Safety Doc, we're refreshing and watching more. Look at this, Corey. This show will end up having like $75 worth of like ad revenue on it, so it'll be really cool. So it is fun now because there's 198 episodes with this, and there's other episodes out there that aren't official episodes and they're monetized. But when people watch the shows, they show up then as creating some ad revenue, right? So, or they go through the ads or whatever. So every day I log in, and there's a little bit of ad revenue that's added in. So, Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of neat. It gets a little bit addictive to say, oh, like, how much came in today. By the way, like, let's see how many, if there's any books, any audiobooks that sold today, because my book, School of Airs, is now $8.99 at Barnes and Noble. I put it on sale through December 23rd. Have there been any more sales today? Survey says no. All right. Dun, dun, dun. It's Jay. Hello. Look, oh my goodness. Joe's like, listen, you never have to go through and pony up any pennies and nickels for the doc here. Just use the Brave browser. Wow. Wow. It's a good friend, Vanessa. Why did the vehicle maker switch to trucks and SUVs? The frames used. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy stuff, isn't it? I think if you took somebody from 20 years ago, or especially 30 years ago, and you said, in the year 2022, there will be no domestic vehicle maker who makes a sedan, people be like, holy smokes. So, Mike, nice cars, but GM really messed up with those 4.1 and 4.5 V8s. Just did not hold up all that well. So, yeah. Jim, the 3.8 with a supercharger would have worked for those cars. Wow. Yeah, all true, man. Just true stuff. True stuff. So going through a 1-minute ad for Tim Hortons from Corey. That's kind of a Canadian thing, isn't it? I don't know if there's a Tim Hortons here in the United States or not, but Corey clicked on it. He ordered a couple breakfast burritos. He put them there in the inbox and just left them. So we get the credit for that here tomorrow when I go in. So, yeah. Doc ought to get a check with us. So here's the deal. So the channel needs about $35 between ad revenue and super chats and super stickers for me at the end of the year from YouTube to get a check. So that's the minimum threshold in order to get a check. So I just kind of, at some point it'll happen, right? But I kind of am, I'm thinking of that moment with my tax preparer, same person I've had for years, and just be like, oh, so you got like a YouTube, you're monetized now. I'd be like, yep, show's on. So, but we're still about $35 away from hitting that the level where YouTube cuts the payment to you. We're about $35 away from that. So thank you. A lot of you have helped move us closer to that. So it's been good. Bacon saying, I've seen, bespoke sounds like a great way to get a bunch of stuff you're going to throw out later. It's exactly what it is, isn't it? And then I see those ads in Twitter. Although I might have blocked them because they just got so annoying. But I'm like, who comes up with this? Is this actually viable? Do they make money of selling this stuff? And they're just cheesiest commercials. Because some guys like, I never knew that I needed to have this TV remote holster for the Velcros to the couch, and then you can also put like a magazine in it, and like a bag of Doritos, and it's just the best thing, right? I would have never thought of this on my own, and I'm just like, who falls for this stuff? So John's like, listen, John Rice is like, listen, I've been with Bespoke since the start, so maybe. This is to me from Joe. The holy grail of dust busters is the DeWalt 20-volt handheld wet dry S110 with no battery charger, but it's powerful and a dead battery never retires the vac. Let me put that over here in a note. Yeah. I don't know what the one is that I have. It was a step up from the traditional, like, dustbuster type thing. It was okay. I had it for like 15 years, but holy smokes, man. So a 20 volt, 110 with no battery charger. Wow. That's pretty interesting. I wonder how heavy that thing is. So this is what right here. Let's bring this up. So what you're talking about. Wow. Oh my God. It's 229 with a 3 amp hour battery and charger. Holy smokes, man. Wow. Half-gallon tank. Washable filter. That's good. Holy smokes. Wow. We are only a handful of super stickers away from that thing. What is Hotel Indigo? So since that's coming up, now that I type it in, like, it'll come up for the next 5 weeks for me. It's by IHG, Boutique Hotels Worldwide. Interesting. I've never stayed at a Hotel Indigo. Rarely have stayed at a like a Holiday Inn or something like that. So I don't know why. It's kind of weird why that's coming up. But I mean, I don't know. Buy books for family members. Look at this. Here we go. Thank you. $22 in paperback, but it's from a good publisher, Roman Littlefield, meaning like the pages aren't going to fall out and it's all formatted correctly. And it's a very good book. School of Errors that this came out in 2019. It's an audiobook also. Hard copy, ebook. It's damn near any format you could want. This is a really good book, not just about school safety, but it's a punchy book. It's about the 9/11 harbor rescue of 500,000 people in 9 hours. How Rocky IV and Drago, and Rocky had more to do with the rescue than what people could have ever imagined, right? Really good book. Check this out. It's tons of libraries across the world, but $22. If you have anyone in your family who teaches, this is a book they need to read because there's a lot of wild stuff happening for school safety. Doesn't make sense. If you have a parent who has kids in school, again, a very important book so they understand what's going on. Or if you're kind of into history and just contemporary stuff, it's a very well-written book. So it's very popular. I get people contacting me about that book. Here it is. Here's the other one, The Velocity of Information. This one came out in April. There's nothing like this out there. It's it takes the year 2020 and breaks it down into like this first 90 days of this finite voltage and people kind of hitting the burnout point. But then I bring in, hey, like back during World War II, we had the Committee for National Morale, and here's how the government, tried to get people on board with national campaigns. And we didn't really have that this time around, right? But 12 interviews, including Larry Lawton, America's biggest jewel thief, Linda Stone, a big tech executive, retired, Juan Brown, from his channel, Blanco Lirio, Robert Travis, the two-time Alaskan crab boater. ton of interviews in here. Really, it's kind of like a fascinating anthology of stories. This is a book when you'll get this, and it's coming out in audiobook on April 12th. Audiobook is already available. You can pre-order it. It's already done, uploaded. Actor Ben Hawk narrate. That's really good. But the thing with this book is like there's nothing out there. You're going to I think be validated. It's one of those things too, like you'll remember it by the stories. So if you're talking about, you got this book and you're talking to Andrew, right? And Andrew's like, oh, like, let's talk about the crab boat guy. Oh yeah, the guy and where somebody like drowned and they had to pull him up off the boat, and then like how the most dangerous time on the boat was right at the start and right at the end. So why would it be at the end? Because like you thought you'd be really good. Well, this decision making kind of goes out the window. You only get so good in these high stress environments, and you kind of tail off pretty fast. There's a ton of figures in this book. There's a lot of photos in here. There's photos that I took, some pictures that were sent to me. So really good book. How, if you get like just 5 people together from different areas, you can do a member check network where people will inform you, like what's happening at the grocery store, what's happening at your bank, what's happening in your hospitals. Are they postponing like elective procedures, these types of things? Is there like a coin short? Do you have to pay with check or pay with credit card? There's no check or cash. You get a pretty good vibe for what's happening around the country, or if things are kind of like trending and you need to like, someone's like, hey, like there's no eggs anywhere and I live in here, and someone, in your network is in Texas and you're like, nope, no eggs. We don't see eggs and whatever. You're like, well, we got eggs here. Like I'm going to take advantage of that because it looks like there's not going to be any eggs. So anyway, the velocity of information. This is a really good book. Not peer reviewed, but I had a peer group check through this as I was developing it. It's really, really well done. Again, through publisher Roman and Littlefield. So my books were all through publishing house. I got to do a book proposal, so they're all professionally edited. That one has 471 endnotes, professionally edited, all the times. Really good books. Like Misty Mrs. Wayne will vouch for that. So TikTok ad, holy smokes. I don't want that stuff going on. That's crazy. So yeah. Tim Hortons was purchased by Wendy's. We had a Wendy's here in our town. Now it's the U.S. Cellular store. There is no Wendy's at all. I should have $200. Well, we'll see. So 1099M miscellaneous. So Andrew's like, listen, I'm going to be right back. So speaking of ads, I do want to watch one of your older monetized shows to see if they pop up in the middle. Main reason why I never enabled them on mine. Yeah, I don't know. What I did is so it says, do you want to monetize? You can monetize individually, or do you just want to monetize like all of your shows? So I just monetize all of them. And so now I do have another, well, that channel's not eligible to monetize. I have another channel, which is just my university lectures. There's like 78 people that follow that. And that's just university lectures. That's all it is. And I would never monetize that if it ever got 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers, which it will never get that. But there would be an issue, right, with ethically with doing that for university lectures. But this isn't, I don't send my students over here and say, hey, like watch this show or something. And nothing is behind, like a paywall on this. So the safety doc, I'm an owner operator of the handheld vac, and it's a beast. Great for cars and stairs too. Wow, good. Does it adjust, Joe? Like, does it have like a narrow nozzle like you can put at the end to get in between the car seat and the console? because I have like a little attachment on my current one that does a nice job with that. Or is it like, this is what it is? So that looks pretty cool though. It looks like the vacuum cleaner from the Teletubbies. Teletubbies, la la, and new. Andrew, what a time to be alive. I'm listening to this show on my toilet with Bluetooth headphones and typing on my phone. Wow. Andrew. So Ron's like, same here. Oh, same here, Corey. I believe we've been found out. No commercial this time. Look at, oh God. What is going on here? At the Safety Doc. I always wanted to become a Polish author or a Polish author, either one, but having 2 books published through a publishing house, and this isn't, do not take this at all of me saying, if I was to self-publish, that's a lesser thing. No, right? Because I know a lot of people who have self-published books who've sold a lot more books than I have. But when going through a traditional publisher of a nonfiction work, which is my publisher was Roman at Littlefield for both books, they only accept a certain part of proposals. And when it's all done, they don't have to accept the book, right? They could be like, no. So then, you're bound by a contract, and they're doing the marketing and distributing and all that. But then the reason I did that way was they are regarded as a very reputable scholarly press. So I'm a university professor. So whatever I do, I need that to count for scholarly rank, if that makes any sense. But so going this route accomplished that. And then it also works with my kind of the other scholarly consulting that I do. The books get cited by other works, and it just helps me with my professional portfolio. They're great books. They're all of them. They're cited. There's the citations and everything. But so that is. So Corey, Misty Mrs. Wayne has the velocity of information. She can tell you about it. And the audiobook is fascinating too. Ben Hawk did an amazing job narrating that. But yeah, so for me, it was huge. Like when I got the publishing contract, I had to do this big proposal, right? And when School of Airs came out and I got that first box of books, and then it started to show up in libraries and Library of Congress. Both my books are in the Library of Congress. They have books that won different awards. They're in libraries all across the world, and people, it's been really amazing for me personally. They're in the back. I don't really plan on doing another book. I have an idea if I were to do one, but I don't think I'll do another one. But they've been big personal, professional accomplishments. So yeah, I would say, if that's something you want to do, go for it. Both of those books took me a long time, 2,000 hours easily for both. And then School of Airs, I think I got the contract in 2017. It took me 2 years to do the book. Velocity of Information was 1 year, start to finish. And actually, September 1st, 2021, it was due to the publisher. And then between September 1st and Christmas, so last year this time, the publisher was going through what's called proofs. And it's not proofreading. It's where they lay out the book, and then they're like kind of fact checking it. And they have like this team, and because at 471 in it, there was a lot involved. I had to go back with some of the people I interviewed and have them sign off on some waivers for stuff that was in the book. But there were many different layouts they came up with for the book for how the content, not the cover, stuff like that. Although I did pick the cover on that, which I like. But anyway, it was really cool. So it's been a neat thing. I'm the first one in my family to ever have published, ever have a work be professionally published as a book. I've done a number of big journal articles and things like that. But it's really interesting when my students know that I publish books, right? Because like a lot of them, they've never met anybody who's done that before. So that's a big thing. And I think it elevates you in their eyes as a professor. And it is, when you write a book, there's a lot of time that goes in. There's a lot of points, not so much with velocity of information. School of Errors, the writer's block, or just kind of like, do I really want to keep going through this? And, yeah, the amount of time that goes in and stuff is just amazing. But I'm glad I did all of that. I learned a ton. I think they're great books. I think anybody here you guys love either of those books. But if you're really into something that is super contemporary, and these interviews, so as you're reading it, you're going to get all the voices of these people, get the velocity of information. God, that is a good book. It is a good book. So, and it's your favorite book. Look at this. Thank you, Misty Mrs. Wayne. And another thing you can do is, if you contact your local library, if they don't have either of the books, but especially Velocity of Information, because that one is new, right? 2022, they'll typically get it. If you say, hey, like, it's not here, they have budgets, they'll buy it. So it's in Squamish, British Columbia. Bolo knows that. So, but yeah, that's another thing you can do if you want to help the doc out, is email your library, say, I live here, I checked, the book isn't in our library, and I think it should be. It's awesome. That has like a 80% success rate. Libraries, if their own patrons want a book like that. Plus, it's just a really good book. So the library would go in and they'd be like, oh, like it is in a lot of libraries across the U.S. and the country. Yeah, we'll get it. So, let's see here. Yeah, one of them is available on Audible. So yeah. School of Errors is on Audible, and 44 other distributors, Barnes & Noble, and for the audio book, Downpour, Scribd, stuff like that. And that'll be the same thing. Spotify is my distributor. Same thing for Velocity of Information, April 12th. The audiobook there is like $14.99, but I think I released it at $8.99 when it actually comes out for like the first month. Again, professionally narrated by Ben Hawk, who's phenomenal. That actor Ben Hawk from TV Manifest. That book is just boom, super. I think that book is going to have a cult following, because it really challenges a lot of the 2020 narrative. And now that the narrative seems to be lining up with kind of what the book was pointing out. I was like curious. I didn't know if my publisher would stick with the book or not, or if they would just come to me and say, this is too much of a hot potato, man. We're not sure we can stick with publishing it. That was a little bit of risk at one point. But they did, they stuck with it. So Safety Doc, cool for audiobook. I'll see if my work will order your books. Cool. Yeah. The audiobook right now for School of Errors, I narrated that one. School of Errors is $8.99. And then Velocity of Information will be available in April. And that's just a contract thing. It had to be 1 year after the print version. I own the rights to the audiobooks. Publisher owns I own the copyright to all of the books, but I own all of the rights to the audiobooks. So that's why the audiobooks also have different covers, because it's not the cover. It's the same exact book. It's word for word, but so. And the only way my publisher would allow me to release School of Errors in audio is if I narrated it, which was really a weird thing, but it was never in the original contract to do an audiobook version. So when I approached them and said, hey, like, could we do this? And they're like, well, maybe. And then they got back to me and said, well, here's the deal. Like, we'll give you the rights to the audiobook, but only if you narrate it. And then it has to. So Spotify is a distributor. Spotify is not a publisher. So the audiobook is a published work through my publisher because of the content, right? my publisher didn't have anything to do with the audiobook, but the content. So I'm not publishing with Spotify. Spotify is only a distributor for the audiobook, if that makes any sense. So there's a little bit of a caveat in there. So like my publisher technically could have had the audiobook rights for that and also released it with their stuff, and then they would have been the publisher of it, but they decided not to do that because typically nonfiction audiobook don't do very well. You know, they're not very popular unless they just don't do very well. Like, you know, someone's going to be more likely to listen to a nonfiction or to a fiction narrated book. But anyway, for what it is. So the book is a gift that keeps giving. The possibilities are endless. So yeah, it's cool. I'm glad I did those. And I look back and it's interesting. People are like, are you doing another one? Or you talk to anyone? Just like, I'm like, there's so much work that goes into a book. But like, I would have good advice for someone if they were really serious about like writing a nonfiction book, about how I put together folders, how I did research, and how I like, you know, capture citations in another folder, and just like things I learned to streamline the process. And it is one of those things where I do a lot of outlines. So I outlined everything, like every chapter. And then like I had these things of like, how does this go along with the theme of the book? And then I always had people I was farming it out to. And I'd say like, read this. And there's like 3 questions. 1, does it make sense? Is it interesting? And does it go into a conspiracy area? Because if it does, I got to fix it. Because although like velocity of information gets real critical of a lot of things, it doesn't overtly go one way or another. Because then the publisher or someone's going to read it and they'll be like, oh, I'm a certain political party. I'm done with this. So, best book ever written. Holy smokes there, Misty Mrs. Wayne. Well, thank you. I think it is a terrific book. And another thing is there isn't anything like this. So the books that kind of came out after 2020 were, the Great Reset and stuff like this. That's not what this book is about. It's human thinking during chaotic times, and it centers though on 2020, and there's so much in there that you can just pull out and how you function with your own life, how you observe things in other people, how you might be able to help other people, how other people might be at a point when they're not bouncing back from this kind of psychological burnout. And so, yeah, I mean, it's good stuff. Reese's ice cream from Breyers. That is good. I could go for that. Could definitely go for that. Wow. Oh, waiting on Doc's intermission. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll do the intermission and then I'll do a little more show and then we'll wrap it up. I've got consulting, kind of a daily thing now. So I got consulting again tomorrow. And but let's do that. We will we'll go to an intermission here for our good friend Ron Wing, because I know he likes look at this. Oh, that's just to show your support with a super chatter sticker. So that is let's get over here. All right. Hang on and let me get the intermission fired up. So all right, I'll be back after this.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
My
I'm back. That was our intermission. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. So, Mrs. Wayne, you can convince your local library to do a book study on the velocity of information. So, I think they should. Like I said, I think the book, kind of like School of Airs, the more that book is out there, it gets its following in the safety community. Like there's people who email me and they're like, I'm a safety coordinator for whatever school district or for this county and, whatever. And the book, like that people go to conferences and they're like, oh, did you hear about this book? And so that kind of bings all around. But I think Velocity of Information is going to be one of these books that's going to grow in retrospect or forensically, like as people look back and are like, what actually happened, like to all of us when we were deemed essential or non-essential, which is one of the first chapters in the book, essential versus non-essential, and right up at the front, and I walk you through Carl Mankey in Ossawa, Michigan, a 70-year-old guy cutting hair, and then the governor shut him down as non-essential, and then the police would come and lock his place up, and as soon as like the media would leave, they would unlock his place so he could cut hair. But this whole essential non-essential stuff was crazy, right? And people don't really mention it. So chapters in the book kind of threads through this thing of saying, this is pretty nasty how this happened and affected people. So it's really in how our dictionary words changed overnight. Dictionary literally, would change. So I think the book is going to, and because it's so well cited, 471 endnotes, that it's going to grow in value as people look back at this time and they're trying to figure out like what really went down. And then also you can get a look for how this was so different than other times in history that were chaotic because of the propaganda. And I think the propaganda, I point that out in the book, I said the propaganda was beyond negligent or sloppy or lazy. I don't know what it was. Like there wasn't an organized propaganda process. Again, you'd have to go through the book to kind of piece that out and make sense of it, but it's really well done. So, sometime, someone will be like, look at this book. Well, I don't know. I'm really happy with it. I wouldn't go back and I don't believe I'd change anything with it. I mean, School of Airs could use an updating. I don't know. I think I would just kind of come up with a new book if I were. School of Airs is the one that should probably have like a new companion book. But again, I don't have any desire to do that right now. So a Phoenix should be called a Molotov cocktail. Wow. Mrs. Wayne Bacon. I didn't have enough. I'll try next time. That song is called A Piccolo and a Cane. That video was made for me by Swamp Dog Armory. And then he also pulled in the song, which is in public domain, Piccolo and a Cane. So thank you to Swamp Dog for putting that together. I do like the big band swing. So actually I have a service I subscribe to where I get my audio that I use in like my university stuff, like the intro audio or the music and stuff. So I pay every year to have access. And then you have it for life. Even if you don't keep the membership, you still get to use the audio. But I try to download a lot of big band and swing stuff, and there's not a lot. There's a little bit of that in polka, but they're always adding to it. But yeah, it's all kind of techno jazz type stuff. I'm not a really big fan of that anymore. But I'm really surprised, to be honest with you guys. I did that school safety video. It was a premiere a couple of weeks ago. It's 41 minutes long. And here's like the 7 objectives every school should follow for exercises. And it's a great video. Like I edited that thing like crazy. So it like really moves fast. And it's got all these overlays and stuff like that. And that only has like 50 views. And I'm like, man, like that's not hitting the right audience, because anyone who's in school safety, it's free. It's this amazing resource. If you watch the video, you take a few screen captures, you're instantly equipped with a set of objectives for your next exercise. Like I teach that at the university level, and I was like, well, I'm going to make it public because I mean, it's my own content. And I'm just like, I thought that was going to not like just crazy, because I mean, but I thought that would be bouncing its way around, and that's kind of weird. So, yeah. So you're right. Those changed. Yep. The preference, the term preference changed, which I talked about. Bacon, Maldito, and I did the show on pandemic lingo, and a lot of that content made it forward into the book. So if you said social distance, it wasn't just a term. People knew, oh, I'm supposed to be 6 feet away, right? So all these things that, contact tracing, I mean, all these things that just became part of our vocabulary and our vernacular. And yeah, I mean, it's velocity of information is in libraries in China. It really is, because I can track backdoor where the book is in a lot of library systems through my publisher. And I don't know if we can bring it up. Oh, that's not doing it. But I didn't think that book would be permitted in some of these places. So, and it is. It has been. So, oh, come on. Let me just see if I can bring it up here. It's in Britain, Germany, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Hong Kong. I can't. I don't have the right sort stuff on to kind of go through all of it. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's a good book. You guys should check it out. Yeah, and watch for, and I'll remind you guys too, but watch for April when Velocity of Information comes out, because I'm pretty sure I priced that at $8.99 for that audiobook. And it's 6 hours, 40 minutes. Again, you're getting a lot of value for $8.99 for an audiobook from a professional actor. You'll probably recognize his voice from TV, but and the reason I did that is because I want it to get out there. So, and then after that, I think it goes to like $14.99, which is still, very affordable for an audiobook, but with a professional actor, right? But I think it rolls out at $8.99. Yeah. So that was one of the things too, is like the publisher sets the price on the print and ebook, but the audiobook, I get to set the price. So I drop those down. So, oh yeah, Bacon. Yeah. The physical list. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's in libraries in China. So School of Airs isn't in China. I don't think it's in Qatar and Arab Emirates, but Velocity of Information is, which is surprising to me. So I don't, I don't get it, to be honest. I really would think like that book would have certainly been filtered out. So it's kind of weird. I don't know, but yeah, I don't really talk about the books that much. Even when we had like Thanksgiving, I maybe talked. Well, I was asked about the book. A couple of relatives. How's the book doing? That's never a good question to ask, because it's subjective, right? Because they're just trying to figure out how many books are you selling. And I'm like, it sells, right? I don't know the exact number because through the publisher and I get a royalty, payments and stuff like that. But it's not making me wealthy, but the book is very successful because it's in a Library of Congress. It's a very high saturation in libraries. And so, I have to just go and talk about specifically how the book is kind of impacting some people. And I don't know. I just try to talk about parts of the book. It's kind of weird, right? Because there's much more to a book than sales for this type of book. Because I said at the university, it did wonders for me. I was professor of the year last year, and part of that was the book for scholarly contributions by faculty. So, but anyway, it's good. You guys would enjoy either one. I would recommend though the Velocity of Information. So, yeah. Ron Wayne says Polaris ATV and Bass Pro added. Oh yeah, so that's dialing in. The algorithm is figuring things out. So now you're going to start getting ads for the villages. So yeah, I would like the show to be sponsored. I would. I don't know who I could get on board to do that though. It would probably have to be like in the school safety realm or whatever. Look at this. Ron, you're professor of the century to us, Doc. Wow. So it was cool to get the professor of the year in May. It was a really neat thing. And yeah, I mean, so got my classes ready for. I'm much more prepared for spring than I've ever been for spring semester, and I think the consulting kind of forced that because I didn't want a whole lot of stuff on my plate at one time, so I wanted to work ahead. But I'm in good shape for spring, and then there's also like what I do is I allow students to do the phone call final. And I added that during the pandemic because, we weren't always in person, right? And so I'll come back to this one. I changed the final exam because everyone was, writing assignments, stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I want to change things up. So I said, you can do a 20-minute phone call with me, phone call, not Skype or Zoom or Google Chat. I don't want you to be occupied with visuals, right? Of having to do a presentation. I just want audio. And 20-minute phone call. And here's like the 5 things I'm going to ask you. And imagine that I'm your school board and I'm going to ask you about what's your induction process for new staff? How is that legally compliant? And then, we have other things. So I'm like, here's the questions you're going to have. And that's it, 20 minutes. And people loved it. And they were so thankful afterwards in the reviews. They're like, we're just getting burned out, from like school not being in session and online. This was a nice change of pace to not have to do a paper. And I think it really taught people to be succinct. And I had a timer and I said, we get to 20 minutes, it's done. So anyway, I kept that. I never retired that, even though, school resumed in person at the university. And I think I'm the only professor that does that, but it creates a lot of scheduling. So I open up this shared Google document with my students, and then I'll be like, okay, like I'm consulting now, so it's not like I have all day. So I might have 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6:30, like till, they might have 2 weeks where I'll give you nights, or like a Saturday I'll open up, or 7 in the morning or whatever. And then people love that. So I've stuck with it. So Sunflowers is saying you teach. Yeah, actually I've been a university professor for 19 years. I teach at a private college in Wisconsin. And along the Mississippi River. Dun, dun, dun. Beautiful campus, absolutely beautiful. And I've instructed, and I've taught for a couple of different universities, but this is my mainstay. I've been with them for 19 years. And I've taught well over 100 classes in the last 19 years. So I don't know what the total is. At one time I had kept a tally, but it's 120 classes in the last 20 years. I mean, some years I was teaching like 5-6 classes a year, but so I teach 3 classes every year now. I teach a superintendent legal issue class in fall, which is required for school superintendents to be licensed. I teach a special education legal class, which is required for special education directors to be licensed. Spring, I teach a pupil non-discrimination class, which is also required for licensure for special ed directors. So, so all of my courses, people have to take them for their professional license, and they're all 600 or 700 level courses, so they're pretty advanced. So I'm a very animated, fun teacher, but I have a lot of rigor. So when you come into class, I do a lot of case studies, and we'll break people up into 3 groups and say, here's a case study, and go, and you've got 20 minutes and come back together, and we're going to like break it down into. One of my students made this and gave it to me in my superintendent class this year. I always tell people discretion, best interest, Board of Education policy, and induction. We will always measure everything in these 4 areas. But yeah, so I do a lot of that, very practical stuff. So there's a high bar with that, but people do well in the classes. Again, I bring up a lot of energy. I'm a fun prof to have, but I also have really high expectations for people. So, and nope, it's not Radford University and TikTok. So, but yeah, so it is cool. It is cool. Yeah, I teach at a university that when I step on campus, and this is not hyperbole, it's a beautiful campus. Originally, the main buildings were built in the 1880s, 1890s, and this beautiful woodwork within these buildings, and it's maintained, it's pristine. So when you walk on campus, it's so manicured. It's amazing. It's an experience. There's really not much else to say than it's magical. There are some rooms at the main building where I teach. There are some rooms, if you're assigned to teach in those rooms, you have specific chalk that they give you because the slates are over 100 years old, and they don't want like cheap chalk or whatever messing with these slates. Other rooms have dry erase, stuff like that, but a few rooms have these slates, which they could even be older than that, 120 years, just immaculate the way they used to do a whole wall like a chalkboard, but these really the way that they were in the old days, and they give you special chalk. So when you're writing on this, it's just this incredible experience. And I don't even know where that. So Sunflowers, I know where you teach. Yeah, I guess it's not hard to figure that out if you go. If anybody does a Google search plus university, but beautiful campus. I love the university. They are awesome. Students, we have a great team. A lot of people I've instructed with have been there as long as I have or longer. Just a really good group of people. So, and we actually get together too, and we sit down and we're like, what are the standards that need to be taught? And then, okay, what are you covering in your class? This and this. And then we make sure everything is covered. And I don't think that happens in a lot of places. They just plug and play people in to be professors and stuff like that. So like we have it really cohesive. And so that's where I just, I tell people confidently, I said, you're working with a really good team here. Like if something's not covered, budget or this part of legal stuff, or if it's advocacy or whatever, boom, boom, we're going to get it. It's covered somewhere. We double check that, triple check it. So University of Facebook. What? What is that? I don't know. So this is really good. Yeah, this is that. Keep that quote, Ron. We should bring that up every time. Is the glass half empty or half full? At least there's something in the glass. What was the original context when I was saying that? I forget what the original context, but I think it's really a good point. It's Ron Wayne, the Kentucky Batman. So, well, as long as there's bourbon in the glass. So, to Ron Wayne, I am all in. So we are, we could potentially get like sleet and ice here the next 3 days, or just rain or nothing. So it won't be snow because it's going to be too warm for that. But it could go in any of those directions. So PragerU, no. I thought about. I talked to the university. I talked to the dean a few months ago and said, like, if you got anything else cooking here on campus, like I could take on another class or two. So, I could do a little bit more. I thought about that of before I did the consulting, before I kind of restart my consulting, I was like, do I want to push out university, but I don't want to go to another university. So, because I don't want to learn another system and all that other stuff. And I've got 19 years here with this place, so it's going really well. So if I can expand out, but it's not a full-time job. So the consulting just made sense to start that up again. So it was kind of weird too, because when I started the consulting, there was a part of me that was like, oh, you get into a lot more commitment than obviously, right? My calendar and schedule and expectations and all of that, which is, just the way that it is. But I came up with a little spreadsheet of like, what are some things that I'm going to buy for myself that normally I wouldn't buy because, now I'm invoicing out for consulting, and most of this money will just go toward electric bill and water bill. I got paid my taxes today, which were the highest they've ever been, my property taxes. But what did I put here? Let me see if I have I think I wrote it down. So yeah, I was going to get some car wash from Grotz Garage. Griots Garage, Griots, which is like it's a special sudsy wash, because I always wash my cars by hand and I kind of like to go with a little better. I was going to get some wool socks, a pair for biking and just 2 pairs for winter, right? So this is actually right. So we get here. Another American Giant hoodie, but I want to get the burgundy one, and they're all out of stock right now. So, because I wear those quite a bit, kind of year round. Oh, I want to in spring order mulch instead of getting 25 bags of mulch. I want to dig all of the mulch out that I have around my fire bush and the maple and my oak, and then throw that all in the back, and then have a delivery from the landscaping people of mulch. So, and then I want to go to REI and buy a heavy fleece, kind of not really coat, but that I can wear down here, like in winter when I'm consulting. So I can try it on right at REI in person. So those are kind of the things I have here on my wish list. But that was a little bit of, because normally I just wouldn't buy these things for myself, right? So let's see what we got going on here. Oh, hey, Doc, did the CBD help? I didn't get it yet. It hasn't arrived. So I will let you guys know. So it is actually the Delta 8. So apparently it's not exactly CBD, it's more on the THC side, but it is legal. It's bought in our state and sold in our state. But Delta 8. So I'll let you guys know. Yeah. And that will be when I'm here. I won't be driving or doing anything. But I'm going to give it a try, see how it works. So probably it'll be a true baseline because I've never used anything like that. So very Kratz Garage, yeah. So okay, you prefer McGuire's. Mike, I mean, I would definitely value your opinion. I've used God, what is the other? I don't know. I've ordered from another company, but okay. Yeah. There's actually a little rolling. Well, I think Ron put an ad or showed me like a link. I got to get something that I can kind of sit on and roll around the side of the vehicle to do like the panels. So I don't have to be bending over. Plus, I can just do a better job. But in summer, one of the best things for me always in summer has been have the radio on, 80 degrees, sunny, and just get up early in the morning and just start detailing a car. Like, just vacuum it, detail out the whole inside, then start wash it, twice, detail, the outside of it and shine up the tires, polish up the glass and so I always keep the vehicles really, really clean. Wisconsin, you gotta get the salt off of them too from winter, but for me, it's cathartic. It's one of those things. It's a start and finish thing. So, if my parents lived closer, I would detail up their vehicles, but they're not as close, and I don't really have. I'm not going to take all the stuff mobile and go up there and detail them out. But yeah, I like to do that. Phil's 30-minute warning. So look at that. If you're driving, rub hot peppers on the affected areas. Capsaicin hits receptors. All right. Delta 8 is alleged to be homolog or analog of Delta 9. I don't know what that means. Maybe I should have done my research a little bit more. So I did. So I ordered the Delta 8. Delta 8. I went to the place in Wisconsin that grows this when we were up north, and they grow the hemp and they do everything on site. So and that's where I ordered from, and I had talked to him and stuff like that too. So anyway, I feel good about that, but it's kind of an experiment at this point to see how it goes. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah. So I've been debating whether to do like a show on that, to do a reveal, here's what the package looks like and here's what this tastes like and here's the effects or whatever. And I don't know if I should do that or not. So it is legal, not illegal. But yeah, we'll see. That's the unspoken reason to wash detail your vehicle, to check up close if there are things that might need tending to down the line. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of things. On our Impala, we had a little bit of rust that was starting on the bottoms of the doors. So I sanded those down. I wouldn't have picked up on it had I not detailed the vehicle. So I sanded those down and primed them and painted them, and I had a little body work I had to do, a little rust, just kind of easy cosmetic stuff because I caught it early. But yeah, I mean, checking it, just really paying attention to your vehicle kind of inside and out. But a super detailed ride is a feel-good labor. It may make the ride last longer, but the result of a super clean, polished, detailed ride, it does. Yeah, it makes you feel better. Like I do feel pride. I put the vehicles out on the lawn. Hang on here. So the Eep from Eboniwa. So somewhere over the rainbow. All right, guys. This was last summer. What do you think? That's my yard. So there's my lacrosse 2017 right there. There's our 2022 Envision. So after I got done detailing both of those out, I put them on the grass because that's when I shine up the tires because I don't want to get that stuff on the driveway. But yeah, so you can tell I put a lot of time into cleaning these things. And I have like a shiny, I ordered a special chrome frame here for the license plate in the back. Looks really cool. And then I have one on mine, but I think I ordered that too, but it's not nearly kind of as nice. This one is a really nice, I forget where, it's someplace in California, they machine it. But I have one on the front too. So, but here's our all-wheel drive Envision. That's a great vehicle, by the way. That is a great vehicle. So I've got a hitch on mine. But we bought both those new. Bought this one a few years ago. I got that one December. So, but we keep these a long time. So there they are. But yeah, I work and detail those out. So Ron is saying looks better than our auto dealerships around here. Yeah. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. Silicone does not really wash off. True, Doc. So Mom had a Terrain. Yeah. Yep. GMC Terrain. So is the exhaust leaking? No, everything is looking good here. Nothing, there's no rust on either of these vehicles. So, it's cool. So, yeah, it's fun to do that. So, for me, it's a good thing. Coolio. All right. Well, if you haven't done a thumbs up, we have 19. It'd be good to get 20 thumbs up before we shut the show down. So this is show 198 of the Safety Doc podcast. So yeah, there's a lot of shows out there. And now it's going to be easy when you go back because some of them weren't numbered. although like I knew the order of them, like so I only numbered like the first 100, and then there was like a stretch of like 50 shows I didn't number, and then I start numbering again. But they're all numbered now as I've gone through and done the resaving process. They're out there in audio on Podbean. So if you go to safetyphd.com and you've got a 500-hour trip ahead of you, I've got you covered. But yeah, I appreciate that. I am going to, bring on the hemp manufacturer, hopefully on the show. We were talking about that. Be bringing on some other guests. I want to, make sure I get to 200 shows before the end of the year here. I got 2 to go. So figure that out a little bit of how I'm going to, the topics I'm going to do. But yeah, today again, we had a, this was a, especially, you go back to the beginning of this show. Here we have a kindergarten girl. Her school district said, you can't be here with a CBD oil for your seizures. We'll come to your home. And it actually went to the circuit court, the 9th Circuit Court. And they said, nope, school, you've got to allow her to be there. And they did a stay or injunction or whatever, and so they could have the medication there, the CBD oil. We got into how we use that as a case study. So, all right. Good. Well, everybody, I'm wishing you well. And I am going to take us out of here, but have a terrific rest of your night, terrific tomorrow. And all right. Well, let me do this first here. So, dun da da. All right, everybody, have a good one, and I will see you soon. Thanks for bearing with the ads on the show. And someone has to be the 20th thumbs up. Whoa, it's Ron Wayne. Whoa, that's the Kentucky Batman. Whoa.
How were the beans and chili that you had for breakfast?
They were delicious. Thank you for asking. But now I am very gassy.
I'm sorry to hear that. Who let the frogs out? Pew, that stinks very bad. I have to open the window. Oh no. My cap flew off and it was sucked into the engine.
Holy smokes, the engine just cut out. We should use the Decide model to help us make the right decision.
Mayday. Mayday. I am declaring a beans and chili emergency. Please advise for landing.
Flight 019er, 2 miles northeast. Turn left at 90. Maintain 4,800 to establish an approach. Engine 5, dispatch. Pockets of fire all around.
As chaos erupts, torrents of conflicting yet urgent messages gush from media outlets. What is the magnitude of the incident, and what should people do to protect themselves? Dr. David P. Perodin teaches you how to prevent mental burnout by observing indicators and building a robust member check network. Reporter James David Dixon of the Detroit News proclaims, the velocity of information will empower its readers. Drawing on current events, history, interviews, and scholarship, the velocity of information is an education in the way people react and adapt to change in this fast-spinning world. Never has it been more important to sift facts and stories for truth and meaning. There are teachable moments on every page. Buy The Velocity of Information, Human Thinking During Chaotic Times. Available from your favorite bookstore or online retailer.
Describe the odor. Is it like when something electrical is burning? And so on. Ridiculous, right? We don't shift the investigation to the reporter, but that's covertly what the school district thought needed to happen to prevent their investigation scrambling principals from burning out. And as this paragraph smolders, it would be prudent to consider bringing students with disabilities from the sidelines of safety and center them to active roles of detecting and reporting threats. So we had a rather difficult meeting. Upon due diligence of examining the reporting system, I informed the district representative that I could not justify modifications to the existing model, as such changes would make the system less accessible to students. Well, that was a short chit-chat. The district folks believed, or hoped, that the threat input system could be modified and maintained with fidelity. I wasn't in alignment with that hypothesis, and so I was thanked and given notice that our partnership would be over at month's end. Business is business, but in school safety, it's never as simple as that. Hi, everybody. This is the Safety Doc with a face validity check-in here on March 31st, 2020. Bellevue, Washington has started a tool to report stay-home violations. This is from the government website in Bellevue, Washington. So we're going to scroll down here to My Bellevue portal and then to report gatherings. They've made it convenient. There's a map on the right. You can drag a location over here into address, write a description, and then also include photos. This is a practice we've seen in some areas of the country, but it's going to be more prevalent. Look for it in your area, probably in the next week or two.
Holy shit, a ghost. Do you mind moving out of the way? You're blocking the TV.
Oh, shit. Sorry, man.
It's okay. Thank you.